Okay, so I have been dying to tell you about the moon goddess of Greek mythology, but it turns out that it's a little more complicated than that. Because in Greek myth alone, the list of goddesses that are associated with the moon is like a really, really long one. You've got Artemis, you've got Hecate, you've got Persephone, Phoebe, Hilara, but Selene, or Selena, as it is pronounced in ancient Greek, she isn't simply just associated with the moon, she is the moon. Not its ruler, not its guardian, the actual embodiment of it. And that distinction changes everything about the way her energy feels to me and why I am so excited to tell you about it. But before we can really get into the tea that she has shared and the archetype that she embodies, she needs us to know a few things about who she is and where she came from. Because unlike Artemis and Hecate, Selena is not an Olympian god. She is a Titaness, which means that she belongs to a much older layer of the Greek cosmos. She is the daughter of Hyperion, who is the son of Gaia and Uranus. He is a first-generation Titan god of heavenly light, wisdom, and watchfulness. Remember when I told you about Uranus and his sons, how his sons overthrew him by castrating him? Yeah, Hyperion was one of the sons that was holding him down while his other brother did the dirty deed. Now his wife, Selena's mom, Thea, I believe is how it is pronounced, she is the Titaness of sight, glowing light, and bright blue skies. Her parents were also Gaia and Uranus. Now, fun fact about her, other than the slight incest involved in this story, she was said to have been the essence that gave gold, silver, precious gems, and jewels their intrinsic value and shimmer. So she was basically the thing that makes pretty things pretty and shiny. Now, Selena's siblings, okay, because she's got more to her fam. She's got a brother, Helios, who is the literal embodiment of the sun. Now, Helios takes a daily 4-horse chariot ride in the sky from east to west. It's the sunrise and the sunset, basically. And then she's got a sister, Eos, the gorgeous Titan goddess of the personification of dawn, who famously fell in love with the mortal Trojan prince and asked Zeus to grant him eternal life, but she forgot to ask also for eternal youth. So her mortal lover was immortal. He did live forever, but he kept just getting older and older and more decrepit until he eventually turned into a cicada and like shriveled up and died. Yeah, tragic as fuck. Now, Selena herself is naturally described as a beautiful goddess, a round face clothed in a long robe, her veil arched above her head to form a crescent. Naturally, she was often called the Eye of the Night, which sounds incredibly poetic, but if you think about it, the moon is the eye that allows the night to see. Plus, just like her bro, she too rode on a chariot across the sky. Except hers was said to have been pulled by animals that change. Sometimes it's 2 white horses, sometimes it's a mule, an oxen, winged horses. The changing animals were a reflection of how the moon itself is always changing and shifting. Even her imagery in artistic interpretation is constantly shifting, mirroring this exact same energy. The moon's refusal to become fixed. Like her crescent crown, for example, sometimes depicted as a starry veil or a full glowing nimbus. What's huge is that she is a Titaness, which means that she came before the Olympic gods and therefore human civilization. She's the grandchild of the earth and the sky. Think of the modern story of creation that we have heard a million times. God or the universe or consciousness created the earth, created the sun, created the sky, the stars, the moon, and then it created life for the earth. So Selena is a force of nature that has been given a personality. There's this book called Selena, the Moon Goddess and the Cave Oracle by Steve Moore. It is so good. I know I'm nerding out for a little bit, but his takes are fantastic, particularly understanding that the Titans were the primordial architecture of consciousness. So Hyperion was not just the Titan god of wisdom and heavenly light. He is the development of perception. His wife, Thea, is not just the Titaness of glowing light and beautiful blue skies. She is the capacity for things to be seen. Together, they didn't just create Helios, the sun, Eos, the dawn, and Selene, the moon. They created conscious daylight, awakening, and reflective awareness, respectively. Now, the moon, we know, does not produce light on its own like the sun. It reflects the light. The same goes for its symbolism and the truth and story of Selene. Now, the ancient Greeks experienced Selene much more cosmologically. Their stories for her ever-changing and shifting just like her moon nature. For example, the story of her and her lover Endymion. In some versions, he's a shepherd. Others, he's a prince, a king, an astronomer, a hunter. But across all stories, they could agree on one thing. He was an impossibly beautiful human man. Yep, that's what they said. I guess, the impossibly beautiful mortal man that caught the eye of the immortal goddess. The canon version? Selene was riding across the sky gloriously, riding in her chariot one night when she sees Endymion beautifully asleep in a cave. She falls in love, blah, 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 blah. Endymion ends up immortal himself and sleeping for eternity in this very cave. How did he end up eternally asleep, you ask? This is another ever-shifting story. One popular version, Zeus asked him to pick one: eternal sleep, eternal youth, or eternal life. He chose sleep, I guess, and Selene visited him every night so that she could still kiss him. Why would you choose sleep? A very good question that Steve Moore, in that book that I was telling you about, he explores many theories about this for a very, very long time. Another story says that it was a punishment by the hands of Zeus because Endymion caught the hots for Hera, Zeus's wife. Big no-no. Yeah, this story is particularly tragic because in this version, Selene does not discover Endymion in his eternal sleep punishment until she is riding across the sky in her chariot, and she discovers that he is asleep and will not wake up. And again, she visits him every single night to still kiss him in his eternal sleep. Another popular one says that Selene asked for this herself, that she asked for Zeus to preserve him beautiful and asleep forever, so that she could come again every night to kiss him as she rides across the sky in her chariot. Now, ancient interpretation says that this is peak romance, beauty and love that remains untouched by mortality. Modern day peeps struggle with the question, was it consensual? LOL. Now, this cave matters a lot more than you realize, especially if you take into consideration that not only did she first fall in love with Endymion while he is asleep in this cave, but he stays in that same cave sleeping eternally. Now, ancient Greeks considered caves to be associated with divine intervention, dream incubation, prophecy, altered states, entrances to different dimensions. In that book I told you about, he has a whole chapter about how caves were oracular spaces, a sacred place where people would come to sleep intentionally for healing and visions. So Endymion is not just asleep, friends. He is suspended in altered consciousness. And it's interesting that she fell in love with him while he was sleeping, too. The lunar world is quiet, still, dreamlike. It makes sense to me that she would fall in love with someone who has succumbed to this stillness, especially in a sacred magical cave. Their whole myth is a symbolic romanticization of the moon descending every night to watch and reflect on the quiet dreamer. Endymion's name, when you really break it down, actually means the one within. So pair that with Selene, the actual embodiment of the moon, descending on him while he was likely in an intentional state of dream prophecy. I feel like it is a beautiful representation of how the nighttime and the reflection, literal and figurative, of the moon gives us the healing opportunity to commune with the one within, a healing state of sleep. She is often associated with dreams and sleep, not necessarily because she rules or governs them directly, but she does rule and govern the hours where they naturally dwell, does she not? In later traditions, she was often paired with Hypnos, the sleep god, or symbols of dreams, silence, mist, dew. The night is not empty, it is an integration period. In a lot of ancient poetry and literature, she was often evoked as a divine witness to things like secret meetings, lovers' oaths, crimes, births, wandering travelers, things that happened in the dark, in the shadows. She is the divine watcher, never sleeping, always witnessing. Most days you can still see the outline of the moon even as the sun shines, ever present. Selene was called upon as the reminder that nothing is ever truly unseen. Think the moon card in tarot, the shadows, the hidden secrets, the intuitive tea, or the cycles of the moon compared to the sun. The daytime rules that chronological time, but the moon is cyclical. Selene rules that cyclical energy. The daytime asks us the question, what time is it? But the moon asks, what phase are we in? This is also why it is so the thunder. This is also why it is so profound that her physical appearance and symbolism changes story to story. Her form is not constant, just as ours is not, especially as feminine beings. We are cyclical creatures. I always associate the energy of the moon to be this divinely feminine essence, because we do not flow linearly, we flow in phases. There is no point in resisting that cycle. The nature will do what nature does and persist. And there is so much necessity in each phase, the menstrual phase and the moon phases. Imagine if Selene judged herself for being a crescent after spending time in her fullness, when that is the very purpose of the moon. Think of the moon phases astrologically. Each phase has a different energy. It activates something different within us, and each phase belongs. The same as the cycles of a feminine being's period. Honey, we bleed for a reason, not just for pain and anguish. There is a divine purge and reset happening internally. Selene comes in to teach us the wisdom of reflection over reaction. The sun reveals everything, but the moon reveals just enough. The sun may burn with its own certainty, but the moon reminds us that even borrowed light can still illuminate the path. She never mistakes changing form as losing herself. She knows each of her phases serve to illuminate what it is meant to. She knows that rest and allowing our sleep to be a communion with our higher consciousness, that is true power. Those that worship her in modern times describe her energy as the most compassionate, kind, warm, deeply maternal energy. Her sensual essence is otherworldly. It is not the same sensuality as Aphrodite or Lilith. I imagine it much like a healed cancer, ruled by the moon, or did we forget? And y'all always get cancers so very, very, very wrong. They're not the crybabies of the zodiacs, okay? Their true essence is divinely intuitive, all-seeing, all-knowing, deeply connected to the emotions of others, maternal in its truest essence, and that deep emotional sensitivity really amplifies their bedroom energy. They are the therapists in the streets and the faux reeks in the sheets. I can, in fact, confirm, as I am dating a Cancer woman. The more that I connect with Selene, the more that I feel this highly intuitive energy, this divinely Cancerian energy. They notice what others overlook. They know sensitivity is a form of perception. The quiet confidence of a woman that walks into a room and immediately clocks everybody who is pretending to be okay, whose tension that they themselves and everyone else hasn't noticed yet, the emotions in the room that haven't been named yet. But, and this is the healed part of the healed Cancer energy, she doesn't fix any of it. She's not the fixer. She just sees. She just observes. And sometimes Being seen is the first and most important step in healing. I love how she feels like a different interpretation of the divine feminine essence. In most of her myths, she spends most of her time just witnessing, not intervening, just witnessing, watching lovers, travelers, the earth, Endymion. There's so much wisdom in that because some truths don't need to be solved, they just need to be witnessed. And she feels like the one that creates the space for your full self to be witnessed, no matter what phase you are in, and the necessity of doing the exact same thing for yourself. Most of your inner truths, your shadows, they just need permission to exist. Not some divine solution that heals them forever, just permission. Permission to be illuminated enough to be seen and felt, witnessed. Sometimes that is the only way that you will actually uncover what is hidden deeper. That is the beauty of the moon, of Selene, and her magical influence. She waxes and wanes as she needs to, only illuminating what needs to be, for now, until the next phase. Soft and spacious, and yet mysterious and alluring, our divine moon goddess Selene. Sure, there's a difference between the ancient Greek mythological being of Selene and the essence and archetype of her, but they blend, they grow and develop as humanity's interpretation and divine needs evolve. Much like the moon itself changes and evolves, different energies are amplified as planets and stars shift and realign. Regardless of whether we are talking myth or modern canon, Selene, the moon, she returns, night after night, illuminating, guiding, integrating, asking for nothing in return but that you flow with her cycle. The embodiment of the power of reflective awareness. If the sun's constant shine says, okay, here is what is here, Selene, the moon, says, okay, but now, how do we really feel about that? What shadows are Selene, the moon, illuminating within you, giving you the space to witness yourself deeper, in whatever phase yourself is asking to be expressed as, in the ever cyclical flow of our existence? What is your symbolic cave of altered consciousness? Do you allow your sleep and rest to be the sacred process of prophetic integration that it has the power to be? And tonight, when the moon rises, as she always does, don't just look at her. Let her look back at you. See what answers that she quietly reflects. I love you, and Selene does too.